So we got to start with the blockbuster here. You got Stafford, you got Goff, flipping teams. The Rams are willing to give up 2 firsts and a third to make it happen. As simple as it gets, who won this trade in your mind's eye?
Matthew Stafford. That's who won. Because if you think about it, this is a guy that's gone from a losing team. Now he's at a winning team. He's going to play on natural grass, sunny California. He's playing with a top defense. It's just so many different factors. If I'm Matthew Stafford, I am the happiest man in the National Football League because I get a chance to leave Detroit, get with some real offensive coaching, and they got weapons. They got a bunch of different things, but it's got to be Matthew Stafford, Jack.
I feel like McVay better hope that you're right, because they have made some mistakes here at the quarterback position. Talking about the Rams as a franchise. First mistake was trading all the way up to go get Jared Goff. Doesn't wind up being the guy. The second mistake, and to me this is the bigger one, is paying him after his third year. It's a first-round pick, so you have 5 years to wait and see. Then you can give him that fifth-year option, wait and see again. To pay him after that third year, put him in a really tough spot, and that's when you end up just wasting 2 first-round picks. And this is a team, this is a franchise that doesn't have first-round picks to waste. So at this point, I feel like McVay, I feel like that front office is betting their futures, betting their entire careers on the fact that Stafford is that much of an upgrade, and maybe he is in this system. But I think in that, in that way of thinking, you're blaming all of the issues, everything that went wrong. Nothing on McVay, nothing on maybe his system getting caught up with a little bit. You're just putting everything on Goff, and maybe that's the truth. But they better prove they can win with Stafford quickly, because this roster right now is not exactly in perfect shape. They need weapons too. There's things that they need in
Whose
LA
fault
as well.
is it, Jack? Whose fault is it? You said you wouldn't put it on. Whose fault is it then? Where would you place blame?
I think McVay's got to shoulder some of it for paying him after year 3.
Yeah, it's the organization. You think about what this organization did. They basically admitted that they were wrong. Look what they did to Brandon Cooks. They paid Brandon Cooks $50 million. You look at Todd Gurley, they signed him to I think it was a 4-year, $60 million deal with like $45 million guaranteed. Like, you can't make mistakes like that on those big contracts. And they've actually gotten a reputation around the league that says, you know what, if you want to get paid and go for 2 or 3 years and make $20-30 million, just go to the Rams, because they'll pay everybody. And like you talked about it, I was going to mention the same thing. What made them go to Jared Goff early and say, we have to pay you $134 million? There's nothing that I saw that would make me, as a general manager, a coach, a guy in the media, go to Jared Goff and say, I'm willing to pay you $134 million. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, it's the same mistake that we saw with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, is it not? It's the exact same thing. I mean, they saw a couple good years of it. They said, well, the trajectory of this needs to be perfect as we go down the stretch. Let's go ahead and invest in it now. And you just don't need to. I feel like the secret to the league really is having a quarterback on the rookie deal for as long as possible, filling up around him and going to try to go win games in that window. And if he becomes a top 10 or a top 5 quarterback through that stretch, okay, great, pay him. But if he doesn't, then there's no reason to. And there's certainly no reason to pay him before you know the answer to the question. And so that, to me, is the mistake. But now you're talking about going 7 years in a row without a first-round pick. I mean, so you look back at 2015, they take Todd Gurley. 2016, they trade all the way up, give up a ton to go get Jared Goff. And now you're going to go 7 years in a row without a first-round pick. You're giving up a third-round pick this year as well. Man, they don't have a lot of resources to make this roster better. They're just betting everything on the fact that Stafford is this much of an upgrade from Jared Goff, and maybe he is. But I don't know who he's throwing the ball to. What pieces does he have in LA that are so much better than what he had in Detroit that makes you say, okay, now he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Is he going to be able to beat Green Bay? Is he going to go be able to beat the Bucs and Tom Brady next year? I don't buy it right now. I just don't buy it.
I just think you talk about the weapons for Matthew Stafford, and you got Robert Woods, you got Cooper Kupp, you got 2 really good tight ends. You got Sean McVay, who's committed to running the football. So I don't look at it as though, he went to L.A. and all of a sudden he doesn't have any weapons. He has different weapons. These are more possession-type guys, run after a catch. They make you miss an open space. They're going to run the football. It's going to be some play-action passes. And one thing that Sean McVay felt like he wanted to do more of, he wanted to throw the ball down the field. But, of course, Jared Goff wasn't very good throwing the ball down the field. Matthew Stafford is excellent at throwing the ball down the field. But also, you think of Matthew Stafford, and he's a guy that's been in a system where he's holding the ball for a long period of time. And all the pressure, everything falls on Matthew Stafford time and time again. Now he doesn't have to feel like he has to do everything. He has a number one defense. He's got weapons around him, and he's got a really smart offensive mind in Sean McVay, who's still trying to figure out things. So when I look at this, is there an upgrade of Matthew Stafford over Jared Goff? I would say yes. In one area, I would say, well, two areas. I would say throwing the ball down the field and toughness. And that's one thing that you talk to anybody about Matthew Stafford, they'll always tell you how tough he is. But the one question I have, because I talked to someone that's been around Matthew Stafford for a long time, and I asked him about the leadership. That's one thing that we've never heard anything about Matthew Stafford and his ability to lead. He tells me, and quote, he says, calls him a vacant presence, doesn't have the type of leadership that impacts the entire team, at times could be a selfish guy. I'm just saying, and it didn't come from me. I don't know Matthew Stafford like that. I know he's a tough guy. I've called him tough many times before. But this is the reason why whoever I talked to told me that they can't ascend to the next level because of Matthew Stafford. I don't know.
And from the same token, what must have happened to Goff and McVay's relationship? Who I've spoken to within the Rams organization sounded like there was a bit of a disconnect between work ethics between the two. I'll leave it at that. A bit of a disconnect. And I think that started to rub on their relationship a little bit. And to see them break up in this way, the other thing I heard was that Goff found out the same way the rest of the world found out about the news. So that tells you something, right? For him to find out, and I understand Adam Schefter is absolutely ruthlessly good at his job, and he gets so far ahead of these things. Sometimes, McVay didn't have a chance to go tell Goff, but for him to find out that same way lets you know that this thing was just pulling apart. They start Wolford over Goff. I mean, it was just slowly tearing apart at the seams, and I think McVay was ready for an alpha at the quarterback position. You know what I mean? Like, I think he was ready for somebody he didn't have to just coach to the last second every time he got to get into his ear, kind of hold his hand. He was ready for somebody who could take coaching to another level, take it to another height. And he views Stafford as that guy. I would have liked this trade if they did it for Aaron Rodgers. For Stafford, 32 years old, missed 8 games in 2019. We've seen him get banged up. Your left tackle in Whitworth is 40 years old. I mean, how much longer can he keep playing at this level? Man, you are betting a lot on somebody who has not done much in the playoffs in Matt Stafford. And I understand that they haven't been great, but he's had a lot of years to make something happen.
And, it's amazing to me that they would come out and say they'll give up so much for Matthew Stafford, but yet they would not say, hey, we're going to rip up the contract and try to work on a new 3 or 4 year deal. If this is a trade only for 1 or 2 years, it wasn't worth it. You know what I mean? It wasn't worth it to give up 2 first-round picks, give up your quarterback that's been in your system for X amount of years, give up the 3rd-round pick. I just think that's absolutely crazy, man. I don't get it, and I don't agree with it. But when you do look at everything from the Lions' perspective, okay, I'm going to ask you, when you're Jared Goff and you leave L.A. to go to Detroit, like, what are the positives there?
There are no positives. There's no way around it. Like, McVay kind of did Goff dirty a little bit here. Like, he put him into a franchise who's in about a 5-year rebuild. They're kind of going into the Las Vegas rebuild mode here. Like, this is not going to be quick. You sign Coach Campbell to a 6-year deal because it's a bit of a project that he's taken over. And Goff, as a quarterback that most people view as somebody who really was just in the position he was in terms of the Super Bowl because of McVay calling plays, and you remove that from the equation. So now it's just Goff on a rebuilding team in Detroit as a Cali kid who went to Cal, who just bought a house in L.A., and you ship him to Detroit. You tell me what the positives are, man. He did him dirty.
I'm gonna tell you what the positives are, Jack. I'm gonna tell you, and I think number one, the pressure is off of Goff because he gets to play in Detroit. He gets to leave the bright lights of LA. You gotta understand, just because you're a first pick or whatever, everybody's not meant or built to play in front of the bright lights. Everybody can't handle the pressure. So now he can go to Detroit. He's in the NFC North. He's going to be the third or fourth best quarterback there, depending on if you like Mitchell Trubisky or if you like him. And they're going to continue to lose. And it's going to take time. And I know Dan Campbell said, hey, we're going to bite your kneecap. We're going to do. Man, those young kids, they're not listening to that crap. I have a 17-year-old son. And if I tried to coach him like that, he'll look at me like, Dad, we don't respond to that type of stuff. So he's totally way off base out there in Detroit. But that's really, I mean, and he's a younger quarterback, and he has playoff experience. He has won more playoff games than Matthew Stafford. He's played in the Super Bowl, even though they lost. So, he's a young quarterback. He still has a ceiling. He showed at different times that he's capable of playing. I still think that Jared Goff can still be a good quarterback. Nothing great because he's not a special talent, but I still think he can be a good quarterback.
And, Rodney, I got to circle the wagons on one thing from last week, too, because you were thinking Stafford may be a good fit there in New England. We've heard throughout the course of this week that he would basically go anywhere except for New England. What was your reaction to hearing that?
It didn't surprise me because you look at a guy like Tom Brady, and he has so much respect from all these guys across the league, Patrick Mahomes, just all of them. They admire Tom so much. And Matthew Stafford is looking as if Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, and he spent 20 years there, and you can't keep Tom Brady happy. And Tom is a very humble guy, and blah blah blah. He's probably looking at that and saying, I don't want anything to do with it. But also think about it. He spent his entire career playing at least 8 games in the Dome. He doesn't want to come out and play in the cold with New York, Buffalo, and maybe Miami, but all those things come into play with these quarterbacks.
I do think that you're going to see the Rams make some moves here additionally. And the nice thing about being in LA is you're able to get some old heads, some guys that have made some money to come there and to finish out their career, chase some rings, really just more than anything, enjoy being in LA. Marvin Jones Jr. is a really interesting one for me. I bet he ends up as a Ram. I think he's going to want to be in LA. He already made $40 million playing in Detroit. He's close with Stafford. He's from Long Beach. It's just like everything to me seems to add up there. I bet he goes there. You don't think so? Why not?
Because they can't pay him. They can't pay him. They're already paying 2 receivers 8 figures. So where's the money gonna come from? You got money invested. You got $100 million invested in the corner. You got $100 million invested in the defensive line. Like, where's the money coming from? They need help on the offensive line. They're starting to age on the offensive line. Where's the money coming from? That's my
point is that he's made his 40 mil. He wants to go home. He's got about 17 kids. It's one of the cutest families you ever see in the NFL. It's like, I know Marvin, and I know Marvin is going to want to be in LA, and I think he's going to want to continue to play for Stafford. And I think you start to layer in being able to play in a McVay offense. They're going to have to get somebody like that. If it's not Marvin Jones, they're going to have to convince somebody that spending an entire football season in LA by the beach is awesome. They're going to have to just slowly start to convince people, just like New England does. Come here, win a championship, and do it for a discount. They're going to have to figure out how to start getting the LA discount, because if they don't, this is not a championship roster right now. They need more if they're going to go beat Green Bay, go beat the Bucs, go beat whoever else emerges next year in the NFC, because they're right now just, they're the team that's 10-6 and winds up getting knocked out round 1 or 2 in the playoffs in my mind.
But you're missing one important point, the most important point. When you're toward the latter part of your career as a player, the last place you want to go is to LA, to California, because you don't want 50% of your money gone. I was there from 94 to 2002, and I couldn't believe the cost of living. And it wasn't like I was living like a king. I had a 3-bedroom townhouse that I bought for about $200,000 when it was first being built, and I eventually sold it and made some money. But it's a very expensive place to live. It's like living in New York, which I couldn't do because it's just so expensive. And you talk about older players coming there. Older players don't want 50% of their money. They're trying to keep the last bits and scrapes of the money that they're making. So I think that's a big factor. And I don't know how many people would break down the wall to play with Matthew Stafford. I just don't have a lot of confidence in him like that, Jack.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, it just feels really reckless. That's what it feels like from the Rams standpoint, and it may work. You know, you could bet all this stuff on quarterbacks, but it always seems to me like in the NFL, there's a really big difference. You know, when you start getting down to championship weekend, divisional weekend, there's a substantial difference between a really good quarterback and the great quarterbacks. And the question now is Stafford a really good quarterback or is he a great quarterback? And for his whole career, he's been a really good quarterback. Can he become great with McVay? And that will be really the answer of whether or not these guys, all their careers survive, because they have no picks left. I mean, they literally have no picks left after this.
Jack, he hasn't been
now mode harder than the LA Rams. They just keep doubling and tripling down on every mistake. That's all they're doing.
Brother, let me get in and say something to you, bro. Let me get in.
Go ahead.
Matthew Stafford. You talking about Matthew Stafford? Or you talking about Jared Goff at this point?
Oh, yeah. I was talking about Stafford right there.
Okay, and what was your main point with Stafford that you just made?
My main point is that he's been a really good quarterback his whole career. Can he become a great quarterback? Can he compete head-to-head with Rodgers? Can he compete head-to-head with Brady? If Brady has a better team around him than he does, I don't know. I haven't seen that yet.
Did he compete with Aaron Rodgers when he was in the same division? Did he compete with Aaron Rodgers when he was in the same division? When was the last time Detroit Lions won a division? That's my point. Like Matthew Stafford, everybody talks about he's a generational talent. Where? Where is the generational talent at? Like, everybody's telling me how great he is. He's great. He's got a big arm. He does this. He's tough. Okay, he's tough. But what about the leadership? Why hasn't he won a playoff game if he's so good? Tom Brady is so good. And we saw that with the New England Patriots. Oh, he can't win without Bill Belichick. He goes to Bruce Arians in Tampa. Now he's in the Super Bowl. It's just everybody talks about how great of a quarterback he is. He hasn't won a freaking playoff game. Win a playoff game, then come back and tell me how great these quarterbacks are.
People love to just blame it on Detroit. That's like the company tagline with Stafford. It's like, but it was in Detroit. Let's just throw all that stuff away. He was in Detroit, and we'll see.
He didn't have to be in Detroit. He could have took that money from somebody else, but he wanted the money, so he stayed in Detroit, where he didn't have a lot of expectations. That's right. He didn't have a lot of pressure because he's playing in Detroit. That's my thing. Like, he didn't want to – it wasn't like he was saying, hey, put me in Philly, put me in Dallas, put me in somewhere where, you know, every single week we're going to get a whole bunch of attention. No, he wanted to stay in Detroit. Who wants to stay in Detroit and play football for the Lions?
He's going to get attention now. He's going to get everything he bargained for now. That's for damn sure. I'm excited to watch it play out. I am. There's so much pressure on McVay. There's so much pressure on Stafford. They can go attack this thing together, and we'll see. Let's just leave it at that.
And no pressure on Goff.
Quarterbacks, though.
And no pressure on Goff.
There you go. And no pressure on Goff. That's well put. Mahomes, Tom Brady. I want to start. So let's start with Mahomes against this Bucs defense. When you think about that matchup, Mahomes and the Bucs D, and this Bucs defense has been flying around lately. Todd Bowles, we saw what they did to the Green Bay Packers without Bakhtiari. Now you're talking about no Fisher, no Schwartz. That matchup, what goes through your mind?
Well, I'm looking at number one is how do they stop Tyreek Hill? And that's the big question because, you know, in the first game, I think he had 269 yards. I think it was 13 catches, 269 yards. Will they keep a safety over top? Will they keep two safeties back? Will Andy Reid, will he be patient enough to run the football to try to force that extra safety in so they can't keep two safeties back and protect the wide receivers? If I'm Todd Bowles, my number one goal is to limit the big plays. Make Patrick Mahomes go 10, 12, 14 plays up and down the field. See if he can't turn the ball over. Make him go the long, hard way. Anytime you play against Kansas City, make him go the long, hard way. The one thing that I will say, when you're watching this game, Jack, could you put me back on Jack so I can see him, please? The one thing I would say, Jack, when you watch this game, when Tyreek Hill and you see all these other guys coming off the line of scrimmage, just watch and see if the Bucs jam them, if they slow them down, if they're afraid to play man-to-man, if they stay in zone. But the number one thing I want you to watch is if anybody's slowing them down, because as the more film I watch on Kansas City, no one jams them. No one slows him down. No one jams Tyreek Hill. He's a 4.2 40. So you're going to just let him run his 40 yards down the field and run past the safeties. No, you got to get in the way. You got to jam him. You got to hit him. You got to slow him down. Those are the little things that you have to do when you play against Kansas City. And you talk about the two backup offensive tackles with JPP. JPP didn't even know Mike Remmers. He didn't even know who he was. He didn't even know who he was. And to me, I would have went up to JPP if I was his teammates like, dude, you got to know everybody. Like, why are you just knowing the first team? You got to know the second team, but just a different story. But, yeah.
Let's hear that. Let's that exact bite you're talking about. Because listen, we get into Super Bowl week, a little extra fire, a little extra motivation. Let's hear from JPP on some of the backup tackles. These are two great Chiefs tackles. These aren't just two starters. These are two great tackles, Fisher and Schwartz. Here was JPP on the backup.
All pros.
Yeah, Jason's wondering what your thoughts are on Mike Remmers. And when you face a backup like that, do you just go in expecting a bunch of more?
Man, I ain't even know who that was, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. But if this is a tackle that you're talking about,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't too much care about it. You know, they got to figure that out, and I'm going to play some great football this weekend.
Yeah, Jack, and basically what he was saying is like, look, I'm a baller. They're all pros, and their Pro Bowlers are gone. I don't care. It doesn't matter who you put me against. I'm going to ball out, and ain't no backup going to beat me. That's what he's saying. That's what he basically said. So he's sitting back chilling like, Mahomes, we cannot wait to get after you. But one thing about Andy Reid, and I played against Andy Reid since '94 when he was out in Philly, and he does a lot of screens, whether it's tight ends, running backs, wide receiver screens. He's going to have a lot of screens, a lot of draws, a lot of trick plays to slow down that defense. And I just like to see him commit to running the football like he did against Buffalo. Remember this year when they ran the ball against Buffalo and ran it down Buffalo's throat? I want to see if they use Clyde Edwards-Helaire to do that.
Good luck. I mean, good luck. Like, this Bucs defense is hard to run on. Like,
it is.
Let's just be honest. Like, Devin White is nasty in that run game. And, and Ndamukong Suh's been great. Shaq Barrett's been great. Pierre Paul's been awesome. Like, he was great in New York. He's been awesome in Tampa, too. He's an older guy now, 31, 32, still playing at that really elite level. I have a weird feeling about the Bucs. Rodney, I have a weird feeling that the Bucs might just shock the world in this game, and it's in large part due to the two missing tackles. But when I went back and watched Week 12, that game, this is with Eric Fisher. They got a ton of pressure on Mahomes, and you don't see that often. And Fisher gave up. This is going up against Shaq Barrett. He gave up a sack fumble in the red zone that the Chiefs lost. And the way that the Bucs defended the Chiefs in the red zone in particular, that's typically where the Chiefs are so damn good. They always have a way of getting 7. They weren't getting 7 in this game, and they held them to 27. If they can keep it at that number, or 27, 24, my guess is Tom Brady's able to beat that on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, also, you think on the offensive side of the ball, you look at AB, and to me, AB is the X factor. I mean, this is a guy, when he was healthy, he was basically becoming their number one guy. They were getting him the ball on jet sweeps and little tosses, quick outs, and they were just getting him the ball, making him a priority. And if they have him, he is such a problem because he's fast, he's quick, he catches everything that's near him, and so much attention put on Mike Evans and the deep ball that Antonio Brown has the freedom and the ability to kind of work the middle. And think about Gronk. Gronk is such an unselfish player. I mean, think about last week, one catch. I mean, well, when they played, he had one catch. It was a screen for 29 yards, and he did a heck of a job blocking. But I'm with you. I'm actually picking Tampa Bay because Tom Brady, man, I can't bet against Tom Brady. He's responsible for 2 rings I got on my finger. So I feel you, bro. Like, Tampa Bay doesn't have a lot. They don't have to be nervous. They don't have to have a lot of nerves, anything like that. They can just come and play with freedom because they're good and they know they're good, and they're playing with a lot of confidence.
And Patrick Mahomes seems like he's been playing at, maybe I'll call it 80%, 85%. Sometimes it looks like 70%. Like, sometimes he cuts on it or tries to really crank it up, and then you see him just limp his way back to the huddle. It doesn't seem like it's drastically affected his play so far. But my worry is, okay, so he's not quite as cocky with his athleticism. Those top-level cuts that he has that we sometimes see from him where it's like, oh, damn, like he has those sort of like maybe a level below Lamar Jackson, but he has those elite athletic moments. We haven't seen those since he's had the foot injury. So if Pierre-Paul, if Shaq Barrett, if Sue, that's the other one, and Ndamukong Suh can get pressure from the inside. If they're getting pressure all over the face of Patrick Mahomes and he has to crank it up to that top gear, can he? I don't know the answer to that. I haven't seen that in a month. So can he reach that top level? If he can't, he's going to get sacked. Like, this Bucs D is damn good. He will get sacked multiple times, and that'll be the difference in this game. How would you try to shut down Tyreek Hill? He went 200 plus, 269, 203 in the first quarter back in Week 12.
If I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm playing more of a boxing one on him. I'm taking my smallest, most athletic guy. I'm putting him on Tyreek Hill and say, I want you to jam him and follow him wherever he goes. And we'll work out the rest of the details in the secondary, whether we're playing zone, whether we're playing man. But this is the one guy, and we're going to always have a safety favoring to his side. You cannot let him get deep. And anytime he catches the ball, he comes across the middle, he catches the ball, you got to punish him. You got to hit him clean. You got to hit him fair. You got to hit him hard every single time he catches the ball. And then see what happens after that.
Okay, so let's flip it, because this is interesting, because we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs now, and this is an all-star team. This is just an absolute all-star team in the NFL. But we're both having an intuition about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and about Tom Brady. So let's flip it to that side of the ball. And you know, people were taking their shots on Tom Brady recently through a pair of picks in the most recent game against Green Bay, through a pair of picks also. It was a 27-24 game, Week 12, when these two teams met the first time. And Brady threw a pair of picks in that game also. I'm just thinking, if he doesn't turn the ball over, if we get one of those clean Brady games like we had been seeing before Green Bay, they're going to be able to light up the scoreboard. Like, Tom is starting to look really comfortable with what he has around him in this Bucs offense. It's unlimited. Evans, Godwin, Scotty Miller. He loves Scotty Miller. That's the one thing. I'm like, so when AB comes back, what does that mean for Scotty Miller? Because that's been one of Brady's favorite weapons all year. Even pre-AB entering the lineup, he has loved Scotty Miller. I'm afraid they may lose that. Like, I don't think they should lose that, because Brady's got a lot of comfort with the speedster.
Well, I'll tell you this, don't forget about Kansas City and their defense. Defense coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, he played against Brady in 2007. He was the defensive coordinator of the New York Giants that, when we were averaging 37 points on offense, he held us to 14 points. He did a great job of disguising, blitzing Brady, had him uncomfortable, had him confused, and we didn't know what the heck was going on. So this is a veteran defensive coordinator. He knows how to call certain calls in certain moments, because he's been in those moments. He's been in the Super Bowl. He's been in championship games. He knows, he understands, and he's not afraid of Tom Brady. He took Brady's heart in 2007, and he's done a wonderful job this year. And let's face it, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not the most talented team, but they play good defense, they play well together, and they have guys that that will change the complexion of the game. So I look at Steve Spagnuolo, as much as we've been giving Todd Bowles a lot of respect and a lot of props, Steve Spagnuolo is that dude. You know, with Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu and those young cornerbacks and guys coming in and out, I think he's done a fabulous job this year.
I'm glad you say that, because it's become the forgotten piece. Everybody talks so much about both these offenses. Then Todd Bowles and what the Bucs defense has been able to do becomes the defense that gets the praise and the spotlight. And nobody talks about the Chiefs' defense. And Spagnuolo's been able to get those stops in key moments, just a handful of those stops in key moments. And we'll see if he's able to do that again. Let's hear from Brady, because now everything's being made about, there was always this crowd, Brady needs Belichick. Brady couldn't do any of this stuff without Belichick. Let's hear from Brady on his former coach, who did 6 rings together. Here he was.
I have a great relationship with him. And again, I'm just incredibly grateful for what he's meant in my life as a coach. And he was everything you could ask for as a player. And, I love my time. I had 2 incredible decades there. And, my football journey took me to a different place. And I certainly could never have accomplished the things in my career without his support and his teachings, and incredible coach and mentor for me. And I've had a lot of those in my career, but obviously, he's at the top of the list.
Bingo, and that's exactly what I was talking about, and that's exactly what I told you last week. I said, for people that compare and say, is it more Brady, is it more Belichick? And I said, Tom Brady would not be in this position, or Bill Belichick wouldn't be in the position that he's in, one without the other, and Tom Brady just said it. And I will tell you this, now you see why so many of his teammates, they listen and they fall in line with Tom Brady, because that's the type of leader he is. Very unselfish. He's very appreciative. The words that he used was grateful, what he meant. And I couldn't accomplish it without him. Those are the terms. To me, that's a humble leader. We don't have many superstars. Matter of fact, he's the GOAT. He's the greatest quarterback to ever play. And yet he's thanking Coach Belichick basically on the eve of him going into the Super Bowl. That's what you get from Tom Brady. So this is what I've gotten for 6 years when I played with Tom Brady. That's the type of confidence and the type of leader that we knew was going out in the fourth quarter to win us the football game. When Tom Brady jogged on that football field and I broke my forearm and I was in there getting x-rayed, I knew Tom Brady was going to take us and lead us to victory to get that Super Bowl ring. This just really pumps me up, because everyone wants to make it about Bill versus Tom and Tom versus Bill, when both of those guys both need one another, period.
Rodney, he wins this ring. Tom Brady, you said greatest football player. He's the greatest athlete to ever play. He's the greatest athlete. If he wins this ring, number 7, to go to Tampa after winning 6 in New England, to go down there to Tampa in year 1 and go do it again without Belichick, which was really the only knock anybody ever had on him, is that he had the greatest coach ever. So that's what.
Well, why is that a knock? You still got to win. You still got to go out there and throw passes. You avoid interceptions. Coach Belichick can't do all that.
Of course, but it's back to that McVay discussion, McVay and Goff. You know what I mean? Everybody loves to come up with some narrative, and that was the only thing that you could ever put against Brady. That's the point I'm trying to make, because they won those 6 together. But for him to now, if he goes down there and beats Mr. Superhuman Superhero Patrick Mahomes in his first year with the Tampa Bay Bucks, people were clowning on him. People were clowning on him for going to Tampa. Like, you going to Tampa? What are you talking about going to Tampa? You're going to get smoked down there, man. And then Cam Newton's going to go up to New England. He's going to go win a bunch of games. Like, that's the next wave. What are you doing going to Tampa at 43 years old? He goes to the Super Bowl year 1. If he wins this thing, for my money, he's the greatest athlete, period, to ever live.
I wouldn't say athlete, because no one's going to ever mistake my boy Tom for an athlete. All right, Jack? So don't call him an athlete. He might be the best football player, but he's not the best athlete. Have you seen this guy walk?
How is he not an athlete?
He's so clumsy the way he walks.
Well, listen, he's not going to win the 100-meter dash in the Olympics. We got that, you know. He probably can't even play pickup basketball. But, dude, that guy's open. Listen, TB12, he's got the hip mobility. He's got the pliability in every direction. That's an athlete. In modern day, listen, brother, if NASCAR drivers are athletes, Tom Brady's an athlete. Give me a break.
Brother, I agree with you. I'm just giving my boy a hard time. That's all. I agree with you.
I love it. I'm going to send him this clip as soon as we get off. I'm just kidding. I don't have to count. Let's get to this, too, because this was an interesting one here with the offensive coordinator. Because, you know, when he first went to Tampa, one of the most interesting pieces of the puzzle was that Byron Leftwich was going to become his offensive coordinator. Byron Leftwich is like 41 years old, right? So he's younger than Tom Brady. Those two have played against each other a bunch of times. It was just an interesting pairing down there, and the success that they have had instantaneously. I mean, you put them together and boom, it's been perfect. Bruce Arians wanted Leftwich to get some head coaching looks now in his second year as offensive coordinator with the Bucs. What say you?
I would say, you know, I heard this, and I just didn't know if Byron was ready right now at this point to be a head coach. Like, that's big. I mean, it's one thing to coach and to mentor a guy that you played against and that's 2 years older than you, but to command the entire attention of the entire team, I don't know. Give him one more year. He should start, you know, with some opportunities. But we saw what happened to Eric Bieniemy, and he definitely wasn't going to get an opportunity before Eric Bieniemy. I didn't think that was going to be possible. So we'll see what happens. But we've had this discussion before, and we see and we know how wrong it is. But at the same time, sometimes you just got to be patient. And
they may be able to put together a couple runs together there, you know? Like Leftwich, Brady, this is not it for Tom Brady. This Super Bowl run is not it. I think he's going until 45, so they may have 2 or 3 left. Like, they're not hitting quarterbacks anymore. That lifespan it just keeps getting longer
That's
and
a
longer.
good point.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.